It's around, if someone's only having like say 6 hours sleep per night, it's around
Mm.
200 times, or they are around 200 times more likely to develop diabetes. So
Mm.
I think this is
200,
probably,
that's fucked.
yeah, so bad.
Yeah, right.
And with 6 hours sleep at night, you're already presenting the same as insulin resistant. So
Yeah, yeah.
it does make it really like the hardest, like fat will always be insulin sensitive, always. But
Yeah.
muscle tissue is the one you kind of want your GLUT4 receptors to be able to like get to and allow like insulin and glucose to get through to build muscle tissue. So as soon as
Mm.
someone lacks sleep and they're putting themselves in a pre-diabetic state, which is essentially what it is, they're not only drunk but
Mm.
pre-diabetic.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
can be why it's harder to build muscle and very easy to lose muscle tissue.
yeah.
Women are actually more sensitive to cortisol than men. So
Mm.
you might find they also have more hormones in play. So you might find that they're more sensitive and they can't kind of like they might gas out in their training a little bit quicker. Like say if
Mm.
you're doing a 4 week cycle, they might only be able to do a 2 or 3 week of like pushing strength, whereas
Mm.
men can like push a lot longer. But women have
Yeah,
more muscle fiber density of like types, so they can do
yeah.
potentially a longer accumulation phase, but a shorter intensification phase.
Yeah, for sure.
So you
Yeah.
see a lot of people lean towards, say, low carb, but if there's someone who's
Yeah.
highly stressed and highly anxious, they actually don't have the glucose there to nourish their central nervous system, their brain, and their red blood cells. So it'd
Yeah.
be more like, yeah, you might go isocaloric to manage their blood sugar levels, like having a little bit more
Mm.
balance, but you wouldn't drop below 120 grams of carbs. So
Okay.
it's like priority. So if you're like, fine, like if anything, I would be like, I'm only training you when you've had like at least 7 hours sleep. So
Mm.
they're better off doing less training and managing lifestyle
Yeah.
protocols,
Yeah, for
potentially
sure.
managing time as well. Being like, okay, well, you're going to get meal prep. If you can't afford to lose the time in
Mm.
prepping food, you're going to gain time back by having those meals prepped. Like order of priority is always going to
Mm.
be sleep and
Yeah.
managing lifestyle
Yeah,
protocols
okay.
first. Um,
Yeah.
it just might mean that the session they do is central nervous system based and strength training or functional hypertrophy based, so they're not overloading their system, but they
Yeah,
do
yeah.
have enough rest and recovery to like facilitate the recovery needed to build muscle.
So if your cortisol's super high, your other hormones are kind of sacrificed almost, right? So what, like your testosterone and estrogen,
Yeah, so
they're
your
going to drop?
testosterone and growth hormone are the ones that downregulate, but also your
Okay.
your T4 to T3 conversion is impaired. So
Okay.
the non-active form of thyroid hormones is impaired, so it's not going to go to active to actually be able to help. So you'll find that people who
Mm.
have a high cortisol amount, and this is another thing, like not only are they getting muscle degradation, but they're unable to make enough thyroid hormones to facilitate fat
Mm.
loss or to facilitate a high metabolic
Mm.
rate. So it's
Mm.
kind of both. That's why it's easy to store body fat, because like their body's like, oh shit, like target chasing or something like that, and it's starting to downregulate. This is where they
Mm.
can, because of that gut permeability from CRH, they can also get gastric ulcers, they can have a high blood pressure, they can be more immunosuppressive. So it's the suppression of, say, like migrating like neutrophils to like an injured site. So if they get a cut or something, it's really,
Mm.
really hard for them to actually heal. But you
Yeah.
also find those who are highly stressed, they'll say something along the lines of, I don't remember the last time I was sick. It's not
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they are super healthy, it's that the cortisol has suppressed their immune system. So they're just
Yeah.
kind of lingering all those diseases, functioning at half-assed like
Mm.
fatigue, but not
Yeah, yeah.
physically sick because the symptoms are like you're healing, right? Um,
Mm.
it also, so cortisol is meant to facilitate like lipolysis or fat breakdown in adipose tissue. But as I said, like
Yeah.
if your brain is so under stress and your body is under stress, it's going to use
Yeah.
glucose from amino acids in tissue to help support
Mm.
that, which means muscle degradation to support your central nervous system, red blood cells, and brain, because they
Mm.
won't survive otherwise.